In this lecture, we will continue to extend our program. So far, our program can handle only one report. Now we will extend it and to make sure that it handles more than one report. So let's first have a quick overview of what we have done so far, and then let's move ahead. So we have created one activity, one fragment. We have created two layouts for the fragment. In the activity, we are calling our fragment using the fragment manager. And then we have some other files which we need to do our task. Our task currently is to show a report list. Currently we have only one element, but today we will increase it to contain more than one element. And then when an item is clicked, then show the details. We are yet to do that. So yes, let's get started. Number one we are going to do is to add another class here, and let us call it report list, or we can call it report store. So report store will be a store of multiple reports. Now let's get started and start developing this class. There will be something in this class which I have not done before. That is, I will be using the singleton pattern, and I will explain you why we need a singleton pattern and how to use a singleton pattern. Those of you who have already read about singleton, this could be a good revision. Those of you who have never used singleton, please pay attention here. So we start with a static private variable of the type report store only, and let me call it s report store. You will notice that I have put a small s. That is to use the Android convention to show that this particular variable is a static variable. Now we make a public method. This method is also static, and we are saying that this method returns a report store. The method name is simply get. So what does this method do? It does nothing. It just checks that if as report store is equal to null, then as report store equal to new report store context, and then return as report store. One thing that we are missing is a constructor here, and please pay attention to what I am doing. So I am creating a constructor. Now my basic class is ready. This class is using a singleton pattern, which basically means that I can create only one object of type report store at any given time. So in the singleton, as we see, we can create only one object. Now if some of you have used Eclipse earlier, and once you start Eclipse, you cannot start another Eclipse, and that's how the singleton pattern is used. Singleton pattern is very useful and is used in many situations. Now let us see that how do we use it. So the major difference that you see here, that here the constructor is private, and because the constructor is private, it cannot be called from outside. Now if it cannot be called from outside, then how do we get the reference of the object? So for getting reference of the object, we will have to use this method, the get method. Now get method, the first thing it checks is that whether there is already an existing object or not. If nothing exists, then it uses the constructor to create it and then returns the reference. Otherwise, it just returns the reference of the existing object. So which basically means that once an object is there, you cannot create another object. So this is singleton pattern. Later on, we will see more use of it. So let's move ahead. Now, the first thing that we need is something which can store multiple reports. So I will create a list of reports here. So I create private list. So list which will store the report, and let's give it the name m reports. So we have created a list in which we will store other reports. Now let's start creating some more functions. So we move forward. First, that in the constructor you say m reports, and we will initialize our list. That's it. Then we would like to have a getter. So public list report get reports return m reports. Public report. Now I would like to get a very specific report. So first I am getting the list in the previous method. Now I am getting a very specific report. Report m reports if report dot get id dot equals the id that we are supplying, then return the report. Otherwise, return null. So let us look at the functions. I have created a simple getter which will return me the complete list. Then I have created a get where I get a very specific report, and we are using this ID of the specific report to retrieve it from the report store. Now for the time being, let us generate our reports so that we can see the functionality of our program. So I go back again into the constructor, and I will try to write a for loop which will generate 5 such reports for us. I is less than 100, less than 100, 100, and I plus plus report equal to new report dot set title report number plus I, report dot set resolved. So we would like to set this variable alternatively for each report. So I will just use a simple piece of code which will return me the right value. As you can see that this piece of code, depending on the I value, will set half of the reports as resolved and half of the reports as unresolved. And then I say mReports dot add report. So that's it. This is the code that will now add some reports to our program, 100 reports to be precise. Okay, so now our basic work in report store is complete. Let's come back to our earlier created layout file activity underscore report.xml. As you see that this file, there is nothing specific, but it is a very generic fragment container file. So there is nothing specific with this report. In fact, you can use this code for any fragment. So let's do one thing. Let's first, because it is a very generic, then let us first change its name and call it, let's say, activity underscore fragment, because we may want to use it for many other things instead of just for the report here. So how do we change the name of this file? The right way of changing the name is to right click and go to an option called refactor. In the refactor, you will get an option called rename, and that is what you have to choose. Let me start the magnifier. So I right click, I go to refactor, and from the refactor I go to rename. In the rename, I change the activity underscore report to activity underscore fragment, so that the name reflects the generic nature of this file. I press refactor and the name is changed. The advantage that you see is, for example, if I go to the report, not report but report activity, the name is automatically changed here. If I had simply done a rename here without doing refactoring, I would have to fix it manually. And in bigger programs, this is one of the problem. So always use the refactor option for rename, etc. So yes, that's fine. Now similarly, just because we have made a very generic layout, we will also be making an abstract activity class. Now our activity underscore fragment.xml is a generic layout class for hosting any fragment in any other situation. So we have created it so that we can use it in many other programs. Now let's go back to our report activity. If you look at the code of the report activity, then you will realize that except this part, rest of the code of the report activity is good enough to host any given fragment, which means that even the report activity class is very generic in nature and we can use it in any other program wherever one activity needs to host one fragment. So let us create an abstract class which has this generic code, and then from that abstract class we can have classes which are very specific. So I'm going to add another class here. I'm going to add another class here. Oh, sorry. This is which I will call as single fragment activity, single fragment activity. And in this class I will actually use all the code that I have been using in report activity. So I will call it extends fragment activity. The only thing that we need to is we will have to take care of this report fragment, and we will have to also add an abstract keyword here. To take care of this report fragment, we will create a method called create fragment, which all the subclasses will inherit. So in order to take care of this report fragment, I am creating a abstract method create fragment, and then I will remove this line with the following. So this is fine. So now you see that our new class, single fragment activity class, is a very generic class, and this class can be used wherever we want one activity to host one fragment. So we have created a very generic layout class, and we have created a very generic Java class for hosting a single fragment. Now, in order to make use of this, we will have to go back in our report activity, and what we will do is that we will first thing that instead of the fragment activity, we will call it single fragment activity, single fragment activity. And then what we need to do is that we will remove all that, and only thing which we will have to do is the override our create fragment method, protected fragment create fragment method. And in this case our create fragment method will just call report fragment, and that's it. Now we can also remove these. So now I hope you are understanding what I am trying to do. I have created a very generic class where there is one activity which hosts one fragment, and then for my specific purpose I am just using that generic class as a super class, and for my very specific fragment I am generating it here. So now the advantage is that tomorrow if I am writing some other program, I can use single fragment activity class directly. There I will not have to write the code for it. Now let us add some controllers in our program. So for that we will add other two classes. One class we will call as report list activity, report, because now we are working with a list of reports and not just one report. So apart from report activity, we will have to have a class called report list activity. I will just extend this class with my single fragment activity class. It gives me a warning that it must implement the method. So I'm going to implement it at override protected fragment, create fragment, and so far I'm just saying new report list fragment. So we do not yet have a report list fragment, but we are very soon going to create it. Let's start working on it. Another Java class called report list fragment. Press OK. This will actually be a fragment, so I will just extend fragment, and that's it. I will not do anything. I save. My report list activity error is now gone, and that's fine. Now let us first, because we have done a lot of things here, let us first have a very quick look on how the program looks like now. So we start with this. So currently now I have so many files. As you will see that my single fragment activity is an abstract class which only holds a generic code. And then I have my report activity for individual reports. I have my report list activity for list of reports. I have my fragment for a single fragment, and I have my list fragment. And then I have a report store where different reports are stored, and then a single report for class where I have some generic information about each report, such as its title, its date, etc. etc. So our program is now getting bigger and more complex, and hopefully we are also adding enough functionality to make it a really interesting program. So far in this program you have learned about activity and fragments, which we have discussed. Very soon you will be learning about many other concepts in practice. We have already learned them in the lectures. Now we are seeing them in practice. So let's go back to report list activity. First thing that I want now to do is that I want to make this class as the main class to start the program. So in order to do that, I will go into the manifest file, and as you can see that my manifest file is showing me currently the original activity called report activity, and it has an intent filter of type launcher. I would like to have another activity here, another activity which I am calling as report list activity, and I would like to make that report list activity as the activity which starts the code. So I copy this part, I paste it, I change it to report list activity, I then keep the same intent filter of main and category launcher, but I remove it from here. So I have made some changes in the manifest, which basically means that my report list activity is now the launcher activity and my report activity is not. So now let's try to run our program. So when we run our program, you see, so now we have again got an empty. So earlier we were seeing one item with respect to the report, but now because we have changed it to report list activity, and let us see what report list activity is doing, that it is only showing us the fragment container, and the fragment container has nothing. That's why we are not seeing anything here. Now this is all good, but we actually wanted to see a list of reports. So we will have to do some more work. So essentially for showing this list of report, we will be using something what we call as a recycler view. So the recycler view is a subclass of the view group and it displays a list of child view objects. Now one for each item in your list of items. In our case, these items are reports, and depending on the complexity of what we need to display, these child views can be complex or they can be very simple, but anyway the recycler view is the right choice for displaying a list of child view objects. The reason why we use recycler view is that in case of, let us say, 100 reports, like in our example, we would like to display a list of 100 reports. Now if we go to each report, you can see that on the screen that each report has a text view, a button, a text box, and many other things. Now if I want to display 100 such reports, do I need to create 100 such view objects? That is too much of a work, and plus that will consume resources. And this what if the report has 1000 elements? So on the other hand, on a mobile screen or on a tablet screen or any smaller device screen, only some of these will be displayed at any given time. So why don't we only create the ones which are needed at any point of time, and then when the user scrolls down or scrolls up, we reuse the elements. And this is something which is provided by recycler view, as we will soon see in the program. However, for today we have learned enough and we stop right now. In the next class, we will start with recycler view and adapters to learn more and see how to extend our program. Thank you.